feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the shrimp tank. Want to put it all together, this is big things. Doing big things. We ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Roadie 2016. Like a phone to die, putting me in charge. I'm a general, from the front I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap never. Going hard as ever.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode here on the Shrimp Tank, powered by Celsius Beverage. This is your first time tuning in. You can check out all of our amazing episodes up on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com. And we come live every week on our social media platforms. So check out all these amazing episodes that are coming up. I am joined by my newest co-host, Glenn Coldstein. He is the one that put this entire FAU class of students together for the summer session. This is season 2, Glenn. So this is pretty exciting. Before we get into our guest today, can you just share what is going on behind the scenes with the students in the classroom?
Certainly. And thanks for having me, by the way, and allowing me to stand in for Kevin today. It's an honor. At FAU, we're well into the summer session now. We're about 2/3 of the way through. And for our entrepreneurship class, we have been attending every week these podcasts, and we use them as guest speakers and examples of successful entrepreneurs. And it has been one of the most positive and well-received parts of the class, in so much so that I'm worrying that I may become obsolete at some point. So don't do too good a job, Peter. Don't take my job.
Can you get a little bit more specific? What are some of the students coming over to you and talking about after class about the shrimp tank?
Yeah, I think what they really like is entrepreneurialism can be taught to a certain extent, and there's a certain amount of theory. But some of the biggest benefit is hearing the stories and the experiences of what the entrepreneurs have learned as they've gone through. And especially the ones that say, hey, here's a mistake I made, or here's something I do differently. Because as an entrepreneur, sometimes you feel like you're in a bubble all by yourself. And so to get that advice from people who've been there is tremendously helpful. And the students really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in the next 6 months to 24 months, really, because a lot of these students are going to get internships from a lot of our guests that have come in.
Yes.
They're going to actually land careers when they graduate from the guests, of course, and just mentorship. So it's really exciting. Like, what will this do to the ecosystem and also the copycats that come around, right? I think across the United States, more universities are going to start seeing what FAU is doing here with the collaboration with the shrimp tank. And they're going to say, wait a second, this is a home run opportunity to kind of connect those dots. So let's jump right into our guest today. Peter's joining us from my hometown, New York City, right? I was raised on Long Island, lived in New York City for approximately 10 years. And Peter flew in for the shrimp tank. And that's what's so unique with the shrimp tank these days is people are flying in because they're seeing us on social media. And he reached out. I saw his background in the medical space. And I said, this is a great guest. And I'm happy to have you come in when you fly into town. And here he is today. So Peter, welcome to the Shrimp Tank Studio. To start things off, can you just share with the students and our audience listening what your business is all about and give us some past history the last 30, 40 years?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet you, Glenn. So I'm Dr. Peter Wishnie, and we're talking about identity. I'm still a doctor, even though I don't see patients anymore. Podiatrist for about 34 years, own my own practice. Never worked for anyone since I was the age of 29. But I've always loved helping people. And I got to the point where I wanted to help doctors have a better life, to give them more energy. Then they can help their patients better, be more present, listen better. It's a big problem with doctors out there. They're not actually spending time with their patients. And so I had developed this passion, sold my practice. And then I continue doing what I'm doing now, which is coaching healthcare practitioners to grow their practice, have more time doing the things that they should be doing, developing relationships, taking care of themselves, become healthy, and actually be more present for their patients.
What year did you sell your business?
3 years last week. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And tell us about that transition for a moment, because so often people are in the medical space and they never get to an exit, right? Or they do get to an exit, but usually it's due to the wrong reasons. It's due to health issues. A lot of people in the medical field, the words come out of their mouth to their patients correctly, but then they don't follow those same rules, of course. And they're going to McDonald's, Burger King too frequently because they never have time during the day to focus on themselves.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So here's a little piece of advice for everyone here. When you open up a business, the first thing you do is you think about your exit plan from the moment you start. And that means you're going to develop systems and everything you need to actually grow it to a point where you want it to be. And then you can exit. Doctors don't think like that. Doctors don't think like a CEO. And they don't think like an entrepreneur, even though they own a business. And they just see patient after patient after patient. And they're staying up late. They're working weekends. And they are just eating whatever is in the hospital. And that's just bad food. You ever eat hospital food? It's really bad. And they don't take their own advice. They're not healthy. And most doctors do die in the office. And that's a shame. That's something I did not want to do. And I was speaking to Glenn and telling them that one of the reasons why I also sold my practice is because my father died at the age of 59. His father died at the age of 62. I'm going to be 65 next week. I'm the oldest Wishnie, male Wishnie in my whole family. So that's, you know what? I think you guys have it right. Us baby boomers had it wrong. We worked hard and long. You guys work hard, but you understand the real purpose of life better than we did.
Can you define purpose of life a tad more? Because I think that's going all over social media and people have other meetings. I just like to hear from you, like purpose of life and happiness, kind of what it means to you.
Purpose is a divide. Well, you are here to give back. You don't focus on you. You focus what you want to do for other people. And when you do that, you'll receive a lot in return, but you have a purpose here. You have a purpose to give to others. And that could mean different things to different people. But like in the airplane, I just flew here in the airplane. If there's an emergency and the oxygen mask comes down, you put yours on first and then you put your child's on next because you have to take care of you. But you also need to think about the people around you and how you can help others. How do you give back to the world? Because that's leaving a legacy. And I think that's all what we want to do. That purpose to me is like legacy, leaving a legacy.
So kind of what are your thoughts then when people speak about putting themselves first, right? Because of health, right? There's a lot going on the internet that have reversed it. You say like, put family first, right? And others first. But now more people actually say, put yourself first. Because if you can't, do things for others, you're not around. Like what you just mentioned, if you don't make it past 60, how could you help others? You want to be around, to age 100. Hopefully, with all the stuff going on with AI, we might be putting devices in our body and living well past 100, they say.
Sure.
But talk about putting yourself first versus others for a moment.
It's like what I tell a lot of my senior patients. They would have a sick spouse and they were really, let's say it was a wife taking care of the husband. Their health was getting worse because all they did was focus on her husband and their husband and their spouse. But if you don't take care of yourself, you don't do something for yourself health-wise, mental, training and just mental fitness. If you don't take care of that, you will never be able to be the best version of yourself to take care of another person, especially loved ones. So it doesn't take a lot of time every single day. I do work out like an hour and a half, like 5 days a week, but you don't need an hour and a half. You probably just need about 20, 30 minutes. And I journal at times and I read good books. It gives me a positive mindset so I can be present for people like you.
Was there a shift though that you started doing this? Because I see so often that entrepreneurs, go through their 20s and they don't have to do any of that, right? Their metabolism works for themselves typically, or a larger percent of people. That's how I was. I was skinny, and then all of a sudden, like I had children, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 extra pounds per year. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know when it hit me, like 35 or something. I'm like, I'm fat, right? I'm like, I got to do something. I'm like, I don't feel good about myself. I feel like I'm going to the office, eating a sandwich. Then I'm like, I'm getting these huge slumps in the day. And then all of a sudden I just woke up one day after I saw a photo. I go, I got to change. And then I started doing what you're saying. Was there that pivotal moment in your life where you kind of had that shift? And of course, family history for me was a big part of it, what you were just referencing.
Absolutely. So when I turned 41, and this happens when you get into your 40s, I was always thin.
Yeah.
I could eat anyone under the table, eat as much as I wanted to, and lose weight. I mean, when I got married, I was 28 years old and I weighed 130 pounds. Then all of a sudden, you're 41. I worked late 2 nights a week till 8 o'clock. There was a great pizzeria across the street. Have like 2 slices and then I usually order a third. Go home, have some bag of potato chips. And then when I hit 41, I started having a heart condition. I wasn't really fat. I just gained a few pounds, but I developed a heart condition, had an arrhythmia, had difficulty in breathing, just going up the steps. And I said something had to change. So I had a patient who was a personal trainer. He actually worked out with Arnold when he was younger. And he came in with a heel problem. I took care of his heel problem. I said, I think I need to hire you. And he said something really, really important to me, which I still remember to this very day. I'm here when you are ready, but don't call me until you're ready, because I want to make sure that you are totally into getting fit and making sure that, you follow my program. And so I didn't call him right away. I waited a few months and I eventually did. And was the best thing I ever did. And since I was 41, I worked out real hard and I love doing it. I enjoy it. But that was 41 years old. Can't really breathe going up a flight of stairs. That's not really good.
Glenn, what are your thoughts with everything he's just talking about and how often, we relate it to when we're in our 20s and graduating from college and kind of putting all these things together earlier than the future generations did, right? Yes. The future generations are myself, you, where we kind of were foolish in our 20s and we thought that, McDonald's would just pass right through us, right? And drinking alcohol would pass through us, and then it catches up to us. So what are your feelings with just educating the next generation on these types of topics?
Yeah, well, I think that the next generation has really taken a slightly different perspective in terms of a balanced lifestyle and what they want out of life. And just working to the office at 8 o'clock, you have the spectrum, but not as much. What I'm curious about, though, and what struck me, Peter, when you were talking, I think about a lot of your clientele who are professional services and especially doctors. Now, for me as an entrepreneurial instructor and most of my class, we get energy from being entrepreneurs. We want to be entrepreneurs. In many ways, people who get into professional services or doctors, they're accidental entrepreneurs. They wanted to take care of people and be in practice. And so there tends to be this idea of, I don't know if I want to deal with the business side. And that's led to a trend we've seen in recent years where private equity is coming in and consolidating practices. Many doctors are staying on as employees. Obviously, that creates a different economic dynamic. What's your advice to people in that professional services arena who say, I don't really want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't come into this for business. How do you coach them as they're thinking about how to structure their practice?
Most doctors and healthcare practitioners I coach don't like the business side of the practice. They love seeing their patients and being a doctor. And I tell them this: we work on putting systems and getting the proper people in the company, and you just follow a few things, you could do exactly that. But the problem is, you need to have great people. Now I'm a coach and I'm just sitting home and coaching by myself. No one's around me, but I don't care what business you're in the people business, and you need to take care of your team. It could be a virtual assistant. It's not working in a like an office, but they're still working for you, with you, right? So you need to develop the systems and need to develop the people. That makes your day a lot easier. So then you just focus on each patient and be present for that patient and give the patient everything that person needs to heal. But they have a problem during the day. You see, the staff thinks of the doctor as the boss, not the doctor. right? So then they come up to the doctor with questions throughout the whole day. The doctor gets annoyed because all he or she wants to do is take care of the person in front of them. And leadership is the answer to that. If anything, you need to become a better leader. And becoming a better leader, then you can actually do exactly what you want. You might not be able to sell your services, but you have a great nurse that can. So you just recommend something, walk out of the room, which a lot of the doctors do, and then the nurse comes in and sells the services to you.
Yeah. In that regard, being a professional and a business person at the same time, you know, you talk, I think, in your consulting about revenue per visit, and trying to get that up, which is in the business interest of the practice.
Right.
How do you counsel doctors, especially, who are worried about that tension between being perceived as recommending treatments that are unnecessary or being a money grab and what that'll do to their reputation versus the business angle, which is to maximize revenue? How do you reconcile that tension that a lot of doctors, I'm sure, do feel?
The number one thing is that you take care of the patient and getting them better. You finding out what they really want. Okay. So when someone comes in and has, let's say, a foot problem, they don't want an injection. They don't want surgery. They don't want anything we have to offer. But what they do want is to be able to run again, play with their grandchildren again, go to work without pain, and not thinking about their foot pain, right? So how can you get them there? And if you have tools that maybe insurance covers, maybe insurance doesn't cover, you have an obligation to provide that information to the patient. They have the right to say, no, I don't want this. Okay, I'd rather have this treatment than that treatment. But you have an obligation to give the patient everything you have to get them better. And I will tell you, if you have a choice between a laser therapy that costs several $100s or have a surgical operation that lays you up for weeks to months with a percentage, maybe a small percentage, that there'll be a complication, most patients will prefer the laser therapy. But to not offer to the patient and to say, let's go the traditional route because it's covered by insurance, to me, that is equally wrong.
I love the way you described that, in that you're thinking about it from the customer's point of view. And we've talked a lot in our class about value proposition and what's the value for the customer. And your customers, as a doctor, don't come in looking for a treatment per se of any particular sort. Like you said, they want to play with their kids. They want to run. That's what the value is for them. And I love the way that mind shift, I think, is probably very helpful for people to get the doctors thinking like business people in many other walks of life that we see.
Right. Absolutely. It's never about you. It's when you're seeing a patient, a client, a customer, it's not about you. It's not about your business, not how much money you make. It's about doing what's right for that person in front of you.
Okay, let's talk about your coaching business for a moment, right? Running a practice, you sold it, and then you had to start selling, right? It's a people business to start getting one customer at a time, and you've been doing this for over 3 years now. So go into detail. You know, when you're a doctor, you have a flow of people because of supply and demand, of course, going on. And once you go into coaching, it's hard. You call someone and it goes click. You can't get through gatekeepers. And we've seen a lot of entrepreneurs sell their business and then go into coaching and then really fail, right? Like they realize like, wow, like it's so difficult to get someone to stroke a check. They know they have these problems, but it's always, I'll fix these problems tomorrow, right? And not today. And then they don't really believe that you could come in and sometimes add these additional things onto the practice. Now, you being in the medical field is a huge help, of course, because you're like, I already sold my practice. So there's the proof, but just getting the meetings is the hardest part. So can you just explain the last 3 years, like how did you get from 0 to where you are today, where you're profitable and now you have a staff and just kind of all the things that go into running your actual business?
Yes, absolutely. As a doctor, though, I was always selling. We think selling is a bad thing. Some of you want to go to the movies tonight, let's say, or do something. You have to sell to your friend that, hey, let's go see this movie. And then they say, no, I don't want to go to that movie, but you really want to go see that movie. So you're doing a selling job on your friend without you knowing it. And getting a patient to say yes to my recommendations. Now, you would think it would be so easy for a patient to say, hey, I need this procedure. The patient would say yes. When I was younger, I was in a hospital and there was a cardiac surgeon who was really upset. And I said, why are you upset? And he said, well, I have this patient. He needs a double bypass. If he doesn't get this double bypass, he will die. And he said, no. So that's just said in my brain that if someone says no to a life-saving procedure, they can say no to anything.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I learned how to sell. I read books about selling. There's for you guys, there's a lady out there named Shelby Sapp. I don't know if you've ever seen her. She's has a company called She Sells. She teaches people how to sell, and she has a selling business. She's 24 years old, and she's worth millions. She's amazing, absolutely amazing. But get to the point here that I'm always selling. So I was actually coaching for 14 years. This is my 14th year. For the last 11, 12 years, I was part-time coaching at night to doctors. I've written a book. I lecture on stage to other doctors about business. So I already was developing a rapport with other podiatrists at the time. Now I'm going beyond podiatry, and that's a little harder because they don't know me. Yeah. So then in that case, my offer is a little bit different. Get to know me, having a webinar, writing another book for the whole healthcare industry. Being on social, you guys have a big advantage. Someone my age, like, oh, I have to take my phone out and shoot a TikTok, 65 years old doing TikToks, right? So but I am, and most people my age don't even know what a TikTok is.
And then define it even further with your business. Like you get on a meeting with someone on Zoom or in person. What happens after that, right? Do they sign up for 6 months? You go in, help them with their technology systems, how to upsell, of course, what you were just referencing, but kind of explain the process behind the scenes.
Sure. So when I make an appointment with someone, what I call a discovery call, see if they're the right fit for the business and if they really need coaching or want coaching. I'm really focused on what they where they're now, where they want to go, what is the pain point, what would happen if they don't get there. And that's key. So you're here and you want to go there, but really, how bad do you want to go there? And why is it so important? By the way, why? When you ask people why you want this, ask them why 7 times. Why do you want to be successful? And then they'll give you an answer. And ask them why. It's like 7 times. They'll get the real answer why they want something. And then they're really interested in the coaching. I have a 3-month one-on-one that's a coaching program, 6-month program, and I have a group coaching program, which also they get like a 1 session with me privately every single month. And that's also a month-to-month situation at the moment.
And then, you're making them a better leader, of course. Is technology a big part of this? We see a lot of practices that just don't leverage AI properly, or just automations, texting someone before their appointment, emailing a calendar invite for their appointment. I find a lot of doctors' offices are still very old school. Some are amazing, but it just depends. And you say bring the human element into the practice where people feel comfortable saying yes, right? The reason why people say no, they don't trust anyone. No one trusts anyone anymore. Like with everything going on in this world today, right? I've done some tests with that, just being in financial services, my platform Owl as well. I could go into a mall and just hand out real money and people say, no, I'm good. Right. Which just shows you like people are willing to say no to everything because of the trust factor. They think it's too good to be true. Right. So kind of explain a little further.
Okay. So regarding AI, I just gave a whole session to my group a couple of weeks ago on AI. I'm no expert. Anybody says they're an expert is probably fooling you, because what I know today will change next week. It's ongoing. It's just crazy. But I put together through AI a chart of every aspect of your practice, scheduling, finance, every part of that practice. What are the best AIs for that aspect of the practice? Does it integrate with your health record system? And how much does it cost? And so that's actually one of my lead magnets. And a lead magnet is something that you give away to someone in exchange. You get their email. So I'm sure you taught them lead backwards.
Oh, yes.
And Glenn, when it comes to AI in the classroom setting, obviously this has changed in the last 12 months. You know, like he was just referencing week to week. I mean,
Quite
you
a
take
bit.
a photo of a math equation and it spits out the answer. And like homework nowadays, it's just like give it to ChatGPT and it does the homework for you. Right? An essay, boom, 4 minutes later, it's done. So, how are you in the classroom adopting, you know, AI in general, images,
Yeah.
graphics? And there's some professors. I walked into a room one time. They're like, no, no, no. I told them like use, you know, AI to help them with their resume because it looked horrible. And I was like, just do it over with the tool. In a minute, it will spit out better recommendations. And then that professor said, no, 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 we don't use that in our classroom. I'm like, what? I was like, we got to adopt technology if it's coming out. I didn't agree with her.
Yeah.
Right. So what are your thoughts in general?
Well, the academic community as a whole is very divided on
Yeah.
the use of AI, because on the one hand, the goal of education is to teach people to think. And if they're using AI to some extent, there's this view that AI is a crutch and they're not actually learning. On the other hand, when you get out in the real world, AI is a legitimate tool that people are going to use, just like a hammer or a nail or a wrench. And if you're teaching somebody carpentry, you don't have them banging the nail with their hand. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's two schools of thought. I tend to fall somewhere in the middle, where I want the students to use AI for some of the tools that it's good at, where it can leverage them and make them more efficient. But I don't want it to substitute for thinking. And so a lot of the exercises we do, both in class and away from class, focus on original creative thought that are going to be tough to get from AI. And you can tell when something's been generated by AI, because AI generally still lacks a creativity component because it's only pulling from what's out there on the web. So I think AI is a good thing, but I think it has to be used judiciously. And it's, you know, it's changing all kinds of industries. I'm curious, Peter, you know, radiologists are now being beset by AI and they're worried about that I go into the wrong profession, being pushed out of business. Are you finding some of your consultants who are figuring out where to use AI, or do they feel AI is a threat to their business?
That's a great question. I'm really haven't spoke to many radiologists recently. And it's a threat to the individual out there because they're diagnosing their own problems. They think they know what's going on. You still need the radiologist. I don't know if, I don't think it's ever going to replace humans and the human connections necessary. And you need that, like that human touch to explain what's going on. Why did I get this? And what are my treatment options? And what do you think is best for me? Right. So I don't think it's, I don't think they're really worried at the present moment, but like I said, I'm not out in the hospitals anymore. I don't think that's a problem right now.
Well, that's going to be reassuring for many doctors and lawyers and people in professional services out there. I'm also curious, in your practice for your clientele, when they come in, what's the most common deficiency or opportunity for improvement that you see that tends to be endemic to the professional services population that you think you can correct relatively easily?
Two major things. They don't have their systems written down and in place, and they do. It's it's collecting dust on a bookshelf, and they're not actually looking at it every quarter and changing things as their practice grows. But the most important problem, they don't know how to handle their team and their staff. Bad leadership. And if you think about this, as a doctor, surgeon, you know, we are perfectionists by trade. You wouldn't want at the end of a surgical case and look at someone's foot or body part and say, well, you know what? That's good enough. Right. And so we don't have that mentality. But we take the same mentality into the practice. And when someone is just doing some like admin work and no, it could be better, and let me do it for you, and they take it over and they, you know, and then the staff person feels belittled and not important. And so those are the kind of things that doctors need to learn. And I, by the way, couldn't keep an employee to save my life my first couple of years. And when you have something that repeats itself, you look in the mirror and say, well, it's probably me, not them. You know, we always say they're lazy. No one likes to work the way we like to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. It's just sometimes we just don't know how to handle people. So I actually took some leadership courses, became certified in leadership. It's the number one thing I love to read, on how to work with people and get them to perform and buy into the mission of the company.
Yeah, it's a terrific point. On the back end, when you've had clients and they come back to you afterwards and say, hey, doc, thank you so much. It was a revelation for me, blank. What's the most common thing that people say they learned that really helped them from working with you?
Oh, they
or that they change, perhaps.
They changed the way they ran the practice, and that really the mindset,
Mm-hmm.
how they can actually run a business efficiently, not feel exhausted at the end of the day, and have patients write amazing reviews and see their bank account grow.
Sounds like nirvana for a professional services person. I'm signing up tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, this next segment is brought to you by Owl, where you get to ask an expert a question. So we're going to have the FAU College of Business students come on up. If you want to ask a question, here is the mic, and Celsius is giving you a beverage. If you come on up and ask a question, take whichever flavor you would like. Okay, who has a question? Don't run up too quickly. Glenn, well, they didn't get coached this time around. Celsius isn't doing it. When I was in college, if I got a free energy drink that was like $2-3, I would sprint up there and winging
I
it.
would perhaps
winging it.
Perhaps
right?
they have foot problems and they need Dr. Peter's help.
They
I don't
might.
think we had any.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, coffee.
We got the guys that are running on up that want that Celsius. Okay,
How
go
you
for
doing,
it.
sir? Thank you for coming by.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So you talk about a little bit about AI, and I still think it's in a pretty early stage. And I'm studying accounting right now, but I'm more into the entrepreneurship side. I like that more. But with AI, I use AI for accounting. Like, I don't really need an accountant. I do my own accounting with QuickBooks. Companies do it as well. I feel like eventually AI will take over. AI, like, there's not going to be a need for so many individuals, so many people coming from college going into that sector of the field. So what is your advice with that?
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think AI is great for a lot of little things like that. But picture having a big business where you're running multiple, millions of dollars. Accounting becomes difficult. And I have my own QuickBooks, always had, and had someone in my office. As the CEO of the company, you don't do this kind of stuff. Okay. You have someone do this, and they will do all the accounting, but then I send everything to my accountant, because imagine if you made a mistake and the IRS picks it up 6 years later, and now you have penalties, and interest, and it costs you a lot of money. So cross-reference it. You can use AI, but then also cross-reference it. But if you're like a small business, I mean, yeah, you could do your own accounting. But the question is, how much money do you make doing your accounting versus doing what you're supposed to be doing, is handling the client in front of you? And if you're making $1,000 an hour and you're paying the accountant, $500 total, okay, it's not worth it. Not worth doing it yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to touch on that for a second. Is so often entrepreneurs start and they're penny foolish, right? They try to do everything themselves. Like, oh, I could do TikTok myself. I could do Instagram myself, LinkedIn. Oh, I could do my marketing myself. And they're always trying to pay the least. And eventually, before you know it, a 40-hour work week, like, they're doing all these tasks all the time, and they're not sitting down there just looking at what their actual income's deprived of and what their hourly rate is. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a second, why are they doing $15 an hour work, or even $7 an hour work, right? Some of this stuff could be outsourced overseas. I'm a financial service professional. So whenever I went to big conventions, they would speak about that. They would make everyone raise their hand, like, who's making over $100,000 in the room? Yet financial service professionals still did stuff themselves. So with that accounting question, also goes back to legal. Financial services is so often everyone tries to do way, way too much. And that's why they can't grow, right? They can't. They're like, well, I'm better at the accounting myself, right? Well, once you get a little larger, it starts getting very complex, and you're missing a lot of other incentives where a professional is doing it every single day has so many backdoor tricks, and that goes for all different industries. So I think at the end of the day, it's okay to do it when you're young and you're getting going because you can't afford an accountant maybe or a lawyer. But like as you grow, like right now, I'm doing OWL documents right now, and like the lawyers sent over documents that were like overwhelming. But I first put it in ChatGPT. I'm like, maybe I could do this myself. Then I got it back. I'm like, thank God I did not. Like I didn't think about how taxes would be applied if I give out equity of a brand. So I just look at it as like, you got to trust the people around you. And if you want to grow a big business, you better get used to that.
Good advice.
Super, super important.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I read on your website that you at one point had some serious debt, and I just was wondering how this affected you emotionally, and also what advice you would give to students that are tackling their student loan debt, or just anyone that's in a severe amount of debt and, you know, not letting that affect you emotionally.
Great question. So when I first started practice, like I said, I was 29 years old and bought a practice. I owed $100,000 in student loans, $100,000 in a credit line, $100,000 that I bought the practice. So I owed $300,000, and I was losing $8,000 a month because the doctor prior to me was discharging his patients, thinking he just doesn't want me to see anything that he might have done wrong. So he discharged them. So what I did, the first thing is I hired a coach because I had no clue how to run my business. But then, so the mindset question is this. It's so easy to sit back and going, woe is me. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. And I want you to understand, you don't need to know how, you need to know who. And that's a great book, by the way. How Not Who, by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. Okay. And by focusing on what you want and focusing on how to get there, really finding who's going to help you get there. Okay. Then you just take action. When you take action, you get rid of all the anxiety. Anxiety comes from lack, and I'm not talking about the psychological, the therapeutic diagnosis of anxiety. I'm talking about when you feel anxious because you don't have answers for something. Once you sit down and take a piece of paper out, old school, write out all the things that you need to do and get clarity of what's the one thing or two things you need to do to get you closer to your goal and take action on it, the anxiety goes away. Because what we're doing is dwelling on the negative, and your subconscious mind will continue to think about the negative, and you have to just constantly focus on, I just have to do this today. If I do this today and be consistent every single day, then all of a sudden good things are happening to you.
That was an amazing answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter, you may have been a psychologist as well as a podiatrist, it feels like.
And I'll touch on that subject as well, is don't buy stupid shit. Too often, people are utilizing Uber Eats way too much, and the fees are way too high, and they have a lot of debt, right? I'm a financial advisor. I see this way too often where people just keep putting things on the credit card, and those small things add up over time, and your friends get in your mind, and you take vacations, and you have to sacrifice. One thing I will say that, the older generation did a lot better is sacrificing, right? If they put those goals down, they said, I want to get to that goal, then I do have to sacrifice. I can't go on that trip with my friends, or I can't, go to Starbucks, every single week, whatever it might be. And it's okay to have some things that you absolutely love that you spend money on, but I think somewhere in there you have to sacrifice in order to pay off that debt. Otherwise, it's a vicious cycle, and then it leads to more anxiety and more depression. But put yourself in a good mindset to overcome that by working out and getting out in the sun more frequently and just paying off the debt, one step at a time, because it can get overwhelming. I have a lot of clients that I work with that have massive college loan debt, and they're trying to buy a home. They're trying to have a family, and they always say, tomorrow I'm going to have a family. And then everything gets delayed, and then you end up putting yourself in more of a depression mode. So I really think one step at a time.
Hi, my name is Kirwan Casey. So my question for you was, what inspired you to start coaching like doctors and any medical professions?
Great question. So like I mentioned before, I had my own problems. I didn't know what I was doing. My father was a business person, but he passed away and couldn't help me. And then when I hired the coach and I learned about the business side of the practice, I fell in love with the business. And I just kept on learning the business. And then, my colleagues complained the same thing. They always had the same complaints. I'm not making enough money. I'm working too hard. I had something that I can give them to help them. Now, picture, my practice, sees about there's 5 of us. So about 350 patients a week, a week. Yeah. Imagine that all the patients we're helping, but then if I can help a doctor be a better version of themselves, they now help all their 350 patients a week. And then every doctor who does that, I could help more people that way. And people get healthier, and the doctor is at the optimum level. The practice is running smoothly, and the doctor is happy. The staff is happy. Then patients get better faster, and we can help more people that way. So that's the reason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He's smart. He grabbed a Celsius. See that?
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. My question is, we live in the age of information where anything we want's at the click of a button.
Sure.
What is your selling point to people who are thinking about hiring you, but saying something like that they could just get this online?
Great. I could give you everything I know. Let's say you're a healthcare practitioner and you have a problem. I have manuals like way long. I could tell you, write down a whole plan for you, give it to you. Most likely you won't do it, right? Because you don't have the time to do it. You didn't figure out how to make the time to do it. It's a great thing as well as a curse having way too much information, because then your brain's going, okay, this person says that and this person says this. What should I do? And it's more confusing. So having someone, a coach, what I do is tell you these are the 1, 2, or 3 things we need to focus on right now. And this is all you're going to do this week. I look at your KPIs, your key performance indicators, and I can tell you this week, we're focusing on this one thing. You and the whole staff is focusing on this one thing. And it makes it a lot easier. Get rid of all the shiny objects, put your phone away because somebody's going to say something else on Instagram. You know what? I'm telling you to focus on this one thing. If you do so, we're going to have a great week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello. Over the years, I'm sure you've worked with a lot of burnt out professionals. What's one non-obvious habit that you'd recommend to shift someone's energy or mindset?
To get them
to just say they're burnt out.
Not being burnt out.
So not being burnt out.
Yeah. So many entrepreneurs are getting burnt out, and they're in this vicious cycle. They can't just, get off of it. Right. Doing their email themselves, not hiring people, bad leadership skills. So I kind of see what he's saying.
Exactly.
It's eventually, how do you get them off that cycle?
First thing, like I said before, is take care of you and take care of your mind. When you feel, like you said, burnt out and whatever, stop. In order to speed up life and business and whatever, your finances, you need to slow down. You need to stop and think. You have to put in time every day, especially every week, to what I call creative time, clarity time, where no one's around you. Right? You maybe put on your favorite music, and that's fine. You have a favorite beverage, have a Celsius, right? And then you're sitting there, no one is around you, and you're just thinking. And you just write down everything, every thought possible. You will get a clarity. I'm going to give you here's how AI can help you. Write down all your thoughts, put those thoughts into AI, and it's going to come up with a plan for you. That's a great way. Then I actually started having so many things I want to do. That's what I did. I told AI, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. Set up a schedule for me. It was brilliant.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll piggyback that is put yourself around a lot of other entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurship is super lonely. People don't realize 99% of entrepreneurs are solo entrepreneurs, right? So what ends up happening is they try to do everything themselves. They're working from home most often, or a co-working space. And it gets extremely lonely. And then they're in this cycle where they have debt, they have obligations entrepreneurship, you still have obligations for your customers and clients. So you think you have all this freedom, but before you know, you're like, no, I don't. Right? I can't go take a vacation because if I leave, the business still needs to operate, and these people depend on myself or whatever it might be. So I just think so often it's so important to join monthly meetings at maybe the Chamber of Commerce or networking meeting, or even apps like Owl, right? We have a whole community of entrepreneurs behind the scenes that are brand ambassadors that meet on Zoom, and they show up just to see other faces and get other ideas. So I think what we're speaking about is just the mindset of being around other human beings, getting ideas, and that's super impactful when you're a solo entrepreneur.
Yeah. I just came back from a 3-day event, which was I'm in a coaching group. I have a coach, and we just had mastermind. That's what it is. If you want to read a book that's old but great and still always be great, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Chapter 2 is the power of the mastermind. Thomas Edison was the first mastermind. Benjamin, we had a few other, like Rockefeller was in the mastermind. Imagine having great minds like Ford and whatever, just telling you like, this is what I think you should do. This is how you should invent the light bulb, So that's the idea. Powerful people put together, now having amazing ideas and just helping each other out and helping you becoming successful.
Dr. Wishnie, I hope you're doing well. My name is
Thank you.
Colin Gamber.
Nice to meet you.
You said earlier in the episode, first thing to do when starting a business is to think of an exit plan. How often does that plan change or evolve throughout the course of like your career and your business?
Great question. It's constantly evolving, and it's okay. It's okay. What you wanted today is not what you want 5-10 years from now, and that's fine. That's not failure. That's we're humans. We do change the way we do work, and we think about AI. Just everything's happening now. It wasn't there 5 years ago, the way we know it today. So you have to evolve. You have to change. What gets you here won't get you there. It's that's really important. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And when I've talked to entrepreneurs and I reflect on my own entrepreneurial experience, very few entrepreneurs actually were able to predict exactly how their exit would turn out. But when you talk to successful entrepreneurs, what they said is, hey, if you don't at least try and imagine where you're going, you're highly unlikely to get there. And so even though it changes, at least having a plan in your mind, entrepreneurs say, is very helpful so that they can have a baseline to adjust to as they go through.
Okay, Glenn, let's get into our final segment of the show that the students put together for this special episode.
Excellent. Well, we have a fun one today for you, Doc. Okay. It's called Would You Rather Business Edition. We're going to give you a few scenarios, and I'm curious as to which of the discrete options you would choose and why. So I'll start you off simple, and then we'll get a little bit more difficult. So first of all, from a leadership standpoint, would you rather lead a small, close-knit team or a large, diffuse team?
Oh, great question. I rather lead a small group. Initially anyway, as the business grows, you'll have a bigger team, but then you have other leaders. Your goal as a leader is to develop other leaders. Okay. Leadership is just influence. That's it. Nothing else. Developing other leaders around you, who then develop other leaders. And that's what we want. We want just to develop leaders. And so it's easy to do that with a smaller group.
Very good. Okay. Would you rather live in New York City or South Florida? I'll do a fun one.
Oh, I hope my fiancée is listening to this. I love New York. You can't get better pizza anywhere else than in New York. I hate the winters. I'm tired of the cold. So I would like to have both. I would like to have a nice place in the wintertime and then be in New York the rest of the year.
Now, let me ask you this, Doc. From a business perspective,
right?
Where would you rather start a practice, New York City or South Florida? Forget the personal aspect.
South Florida. The taxes will kill you in New York.
All right. Now let me get to my real question. This is the one I really wanted to ask. Okay. Would you rather make 50% more working for someone else or 50% less working for yourself?
No, it's easy. I'd just rather work for myself.
75%.
75%. Yeah, because I'm
Still.
in control. So I'm still in charge. You know, you're giving me less, but I'm going to grow it. Okay. I'm going to I just know it.
That's the entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah. I don't, you know, yeah, I rather have, if, you know, I don't know if you know this, but okay, that's the wrong crowd. I'm sorry, but Paul Anka, you know, with the song for the Tonight Show, right?
I remember Paul Anka. Yes. So.
Well, I said, and it's the opening act for the Tonight Show. Okay, the song, and I think it was like da 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 da. Right? He was offered $1 for every time it played, or I don't know the exact number, $100,000, I think it was, and he took the $1, and it was on air for how long? It's like he made millions. Okay, so you have to have that mindset.
Many years. Many years.
I think we got to give him a hypothetical here with something around his practice or New York. Okay.
Or New York.
You're like, no pizza. Would you rather have no pizza from New York the rest of your life and get that opportunity, spend 4 months a year down here in Florida? You said that there's some arguments going on behind the scenes with the significant others, but if that was the deal breaker, no pizza for the rest of your life from New York, but you get to spend 4 months down here in Florida, which one is it?
I'll find a nice Italian guy in New York and bring him to Florida.
They exist down here, but the pizza still doesn't come out right somehow.
Yes.
Now there's some good pizza. You got Mr. Rose down here.
So
Mr.
that
Rose
might be an
is
entrepreneurial
good.
opportunity for somebody. So you may have identified a real need in the market down here.
There's good pizza. You got to travel to get to it. Like Miami Slice, you know, Mr. Rose is amazing. That's here, but it's not on every corner.
I'll have to look
like
up
New
David Portnoy's scores. He gave
Of
it.
course.
Yeah, I have to look up. Yeah.
Do you have any more would you
Very
rathers?
good. I have one more that I'm interested in. And this goes back to our question about AI and other things, because different professions are being impacted differently from AI and from other trends. So I thought about the difference between a profession like a dentist, right, where the business has been sort of under attack or being eroded by fluoride and better dental habits and everything over the years. So it's been a slow decline, as opposed to the example we talked about earlier, something like radiologists, who they were experts, unquestioned, for so many years. And the AI trend has hit so fast that they're having to respond very rapidly, but it's forcing them to really think through at a rapid speed what to do with their business. Would you rather be in a business that is undergoing a sort of slow decline where you've got a lot of time to react to it and it's gradual, or a rapid decline where you're motivated to action more quickly?
That's motivated to action. If you take too much time, you don't you don't respond properly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, have too much time to think. Once you know how to run your business, it's more a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
You already know how to do something, and you know what's right. You know by your gut. If you spend too much time, you're thinking way too much and you're overanalyzing things, but your gut always knows the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just come up with, I always say, get the facts real quickly and make a decision real quickly.
So in some ways, having a crisis could be a good thing, because otherwise you might die a death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly. Right? You know, it's COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to make a decision immediately how I'm going to handle the practice. And so I made some decisions, but then I took my leaders around my practice and I said, this is what I have. I have an idea for this. What do you think? And they also implemented some of their ideas and gave their thoughts, and I re-implemented them, and we actually made more money during COVID than the year before. Right.
It's terrific.
Yeah.
And without COVID, we wouldn't have some of the things we have today, the ability to work from home more and the rise of Zoom and all these things. If there was a minor disease that had hit us, some of those things may never have been adopted at the rate they've been adopted. Absolutely. So it's a really good lesson.
Anytime there's an obstacle, or something's being taken away that you think, and you focus on being taken away, there's a new opportunity always. I'll let you know, in the years of the Depression, 1929, people still made money. Henry Ford made a lot of money in 1929. So there's still opportunities, and you have to think in that kind of mindset.
Completely agree. Well, Peter, thank you for joining us here on the Shrimp Tank today. For audience listening, if they want to reach out to you, what are the best routes?
Best is email Dr. Wishnie at Gmail or Instagram, which is Coach_Peter Wishnie.
And of course, he is now on the Owl app, so you could call him one-on-one on that platform. Just hit that request to go available button, chat one-on-one privately, which is pretty unique, of course, because he's all about relationships and people.
Absolutely.
So all the students out here, if you want to talk to Peter, of course, next week, ring him on the Owl platform. We'll be back next week. So take care, everybody. Stay tuned.